We've got another good battle brewing here. 2 weeks ago, it was Trump v. Elon. And now this one's playing out in the public. Trump v. Tucker Carlson. Good morning, 6:05 on a Tuesday. Great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. 95.7 FM. We are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So, of course, we're sitting here waiting to see what is going to happen and what the next move is going to be between Israel and Iran. Overnight, Israel shot down more Iranian drones. Yesterday, the president of the United States recommended that Iranians should evacuate Tehran. So this obviously goes back to what happened last week when Israel decided that they were going to go after the nuclear sites in Iran because, well, if Iran gets nukes, that's very bad for one of our most important allies, and frankly, it's very bad for the West as well to have that hanging over our head. To be clear, nobody wants to see Iraq or Afghanistan 2.0. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there are a couple of people out there who want that. I saw a funny headline, satirical headline last week, might have been the Babylon Bee. It says John Bolton, of course, former national security advisor under Donald Trump 1.0, John Bolton hospitalized with 5-hour erection following Israel's bombing of Iran. So, yes, there are the John Bolton warhawks out there. But for the most part, politically speaking, Democrats and Republicans are aligned on the idea of not wanting to be heavily involved in another war in the Middle East. Trump knows that would be political suicide for him to do that. So yesterday you have, of course, Tucker Carlson's been very critical of some of the happenings in the Middle East for quite some time now. And Trump put up a post on Truth Social saying, somebody please explain the kooky Tucker Carlson that, quote, all caps, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So now you got Trump v. Tucker as we get the third week of June started. To be clear, I'm Team Trump on this one. Now, I'm a fan of Tucker Carlson on a lot of issues. He was a guest on the show almost 1 year ago to the day. He was here to promote his big event in Kansas City that happened in, I guess that was September it took place at a T-Mobile. Couldn't have been nicer. Great guest. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him, and I still enjoy listening to him. Like this notion of, oh my gosh, I disagree with somebody on something, they must be dead to me. I don't deal in my relationships like that, whether it's personally, whether it's at the office. I just happen to disagree with people on different things. It's kind of like normal. Before social media came around, this used to be an understood concept. We didn't have to have this all or nothing mentality with people that we dealt with, covered, or worked with. And this is just a case in point with Tucker Carlson. Now, he has been oddly anti-Israel, I would say, for quite some time now. And I can't really get a read on why, other than the fact that he likes to be a contrarian on a lot of things. And I also think there's always a misunderstanding in terms of how they frame the issues as isolationists. They claim it's either all-out war with American blood, or we sit here, we do nothing, we protect the United States from our shores, and that's all we do. And the rest of the world be damned. And it's not that simple. There's a massive gray area there. It's not like, hey, we're either going to war in the Middle East with young men from this country, or if we don't do that, we are going to be truly America first, air quotes, and we are going to do nothing overseas. We will just basically sit here in the United States and make sure nobody comes into this country that we don't like, and we're going to protect everything right here in the U.S. That's not living in the world the way it's presently constructed. That is some weird fantasy world that doesn't actually exist. Nobody of common sense and reason wants to involve American troops in the Middle East right now. Trump doesn't want to do it. It would sink his presidency. And I trust him to not get us into that situation and navigate this current situation with America's interests as the top priority. I trust him more than I would have trusted George W. Bush in this situation because his instincts have always been very much anti-war. Trump is not one of these guys. I mean, history shows he's not one of these guys looking to get us in the Middle East conflicts. That's not his MO. It's not like he's a president who's just learning his way through his first term. We have a full term in office on this guy. And during his time in office, 1.0, we had a very peaceful 4 years. The peace through strength mentality worked with Donald Trump. He was trying to get a deal done with the Iranians. They blew past the deadline. They didn't take him seriously. And then they had hell to pay from the Israelis. And Trump still is saying that he wants to get a deal done. So yesterday, Trump was asked about this beef with Tucker Carlson, and here's what he had to say.
So he's done really a very good job.
How was your response to Tucker Carlson criticizing you, saying that you were complicit in the war?
I don't know what Tucker Carlson is saying. Let him go get a television network and say it so that people listen.
And quickly, have you spoken?
No, like I said from the get-go here, between Trump and Carlson, I'm Team Trump on this beef. But I will say Trump is wrong on that. You don't need a TV network in 2025 to have a big audience. The world has changed. Little bit of a boomer take there from Trump, but either way, I'm still Team Trump on this one. He's right to criticize Tucker on this whole deal. Now, I put this up on Facebook last night actually, Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, and got dozens of comments, and a lot of you fired back, no pun intended, and said, Pete, he's just anti-war like many of us. That is from Eric. Jay writes, he's just very anti-war because of our historical rationale and justification. Ron writes, Tucker always is anti-war at all costs. That is such an oversimplification. I love you guys, but that is oversimplifying this. Trump is anti-war. Right? And this is the age-old question. And you can't perfectly Monday morning quarterback this stuff, but what Trump is thinking right now is to avoid a larger scale, massive conflict in the Middle East. We've got to apply some pressure right now on the Iranians, get them back to the negotiating table, make them realize that now is the time to cut a deal. So we end up in a situation where there is not more large-scale war in the Middle East. That's the name of the game here. That's what I believe, in part, Donald Trump is doing and trying to accomplish. Avoid something larger by creating the present situation we find ourselves in and saying, guys, stop screwing around. Let's get a deal done here, and let's move on and get this over with and get some peace in that part of the region. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. It's great to have you here as we get the show started at 6:13. These No Kings organizers really have to figure out how to get their propaganda right. 7:05, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO. We have your next chance to win 3-day passes to Country Stampede next weekend at Azura Amphitheater coming up at 7:45. That is 45 minutes away, 40 minutes away technically, right here on KCMO 95.7. We're giving them away all week at 7:45 and then 10:45 in the Keatsman Show. So I was looking through local media yesterday. I'm trying to get a read on how many people were at these No Kings protests on Saturday around Kansas City. And, we saw the biggest crowd down on the plaza. We saw, a couple of washed up hippies down in Overland Park, 135th and Metcalf. I guess there was a handful of folks out in Lee's Summit as well. And same thing with Sarco Park over in Lenexa. So yesterday I said, let me try to get a number here because I saw the national figures being reported at 5 million people protesting across the country. Now, if you do the math on that 5 million, it obviously sounds like a lot, but that is about 7% of the population that voted for Kamala Harris in the last election. Not a huge number when you really think about it, but I'm curious how they drum up and find these numbers. So I said, let me see what these numbers look like for Kansas City. So I got 4 different media outlets here, and they're all reporting wildly different numbers. I know this is a shocker to you. These numbers are all over the map. So let's start with Channel 9, KMBC. They had this story yesterday. Organizers estimate more than 2,000 people at Country Club Plaza for No Kings protest. That's about what I would have ballparked just using my eye. Now, once again, I wasn't there. I know it's going to surprise you. I wasn't there.
Talk about a bombshell.
But I would have ballparked that number, 2,000, right? Okay, so we got Channel 9 saying about 2,000 people down.
That's the size of the venue, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes
Any
sense.
more down there would be traffic problems.
You're right. So then I start looking at some of the other numbers that maybe local media has here. And it says, this is Channel 5, KCTV. Headline, No Kings organizers say 60,000 people across Missouri protest, 17,000 in Kansas City. Now, they included Kansas City as a region here, which would be the Plaza, Lee Summit. They said Independence, other suburbs, Overland Park. But that number doesn't make sense because if KMBC is reporting 2,000 on the Plaza, which you know is going to be your hub and your biggest protest, you just can't get to the 17,000 mark if you only have 2,000 down on the Plaza. So that
and nothing north, right? Didn't we over that? At least when we looked on Friday, I don't think we had a site up north even in the metropolitan area.
KCTV says here North Kansas City was on the list, but once again,
maybe there was one. There were most of them south of the river.
Yes, and even the one in North KC, would that have 6 people at it? I mean, come on. It's not exactly a hub for wokeness. So KCTV reports 17,000 people. Let's move on. Let's go to Channel 41. They reported that there were 1,000 people down in Overland Park at the protest based on their numbers. And that was just an estimate from one of their reporters, Marlon Martinez, saying 1,000 people spread out from US 69 Highway to Metcalf Avenue for their No Kings Day protest. So 1,000 people in Overland Park, that theoretically would be your second largest protest location in the region, just based on population. And if they only had 1,000, which, yeah, that might be an accurate number. I don't know for sure, but based on some of the photos and videos I saw, that sounds about right. You're not getting to the 17,000 that organizers said were protesting around the entire Kansas City area. And then you also had KCUR. KCUR puts out a story here. And they cite Indivisible KC founder Beverly Harvey, who says 10,000 people had come out for the protest despite high heat and humidity. And she claimed this was all right there on the plaza. So how does she know? What is she doing to get the number of 10,000? Channel 9 reported 2,000 on the plaza. The organizer claims 10,000. 10,000? I mean, that is, do you realize you would be shutting down the plaza for blocks if 10,000 people showed up on the plaza on Saturday? It was not 10,000 people, but I get it. If you're an organizer, you've got to be like, oh, my goodness, look, we have people for miles down Main Street.
Maybe they're turning the Christmas lights on again.
Yeah. This is ridiculous. People are just guessing numbers. That's all they're doing here. They're guessing numbers because it was part of the propaganda arm of the No Kings protest. The whole purpose was to drum up this fake enthusiasm that the entire country has turned on Donald Trump. That's not true. Now, this is the blueprint they used back in 2017. Remember, they had like the Women's March. Everyone wore those, pink hats. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be family friendly here.
Right.
Okay. They wore those pink hats, which if you know, kind of a thing. So they put on their big pink hats and they marched around and they said, oh, man, look at the groundswell against Trump. And it somewhat worked because the media had a little more juice back in 17. Trump was not as popular in 17 as he is right now. And he just also cared more about what the other side thought 8 years ago than he does today. So it was a totally different world. As we sit here right now, Trump's doing his thing. He didn't give one rip about these No Kings protests. He wasn't ranting and raving about them on social media. He actually was kind of mocking them at times, it seemed like, and he wasn't bothered by it. He's got Iran and Israel basically at war right now in the Middle East. Okay? He's not worried about the washed up hippie who did too many drugs showing up on the plaza being like, Orange man bad, down goes Trump, 86-47. He doesn't have time for that right now. He just can't afford to worry about this stuff right now. And to his credit, the one thing I'm continuing to see him do a much better job of in 2.0 versus 1.0, he's not getting bogged down by nonsense. Now, he's Trump, so he's always going to get bogged down by a little bit of nonsense. He's always going to get caught up in fights he should probably avoid, but he's much more focused, it seems like, right now than he was early on in the 1.0 days.
The Brits call it a tempest in a teacup. In other words, he'll throw something in at the end of a sentence, but he doesn't elaborate and make it the whole point of the post.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's done right now. And I appreciate the fact that he's doing it this way. He's not being bothered by any of this, and the organizers are making up numbers, and the media, when you actually look at how they're reporting the numbers, they're so wildly inconsistent. Channel 9 says 2,000. KCUR says 10,000. Channel 5 says 17,000 across the metro. If I were to take just a ballpark guess, and this is just based on looking at the videos on local news, pictures, social media, I would ballpark it was a total across all the rallies, all the protests, I would peg it at about 10,000. That would be my number. And when you think about 10,000 people out of 2.5 million, you are talking about 0.4% of our population.
Right. T-Mobile Center, you're talking about the floor and the lower bowl, right? At a Garth Brooks concert, he'd be coming out going, where is everybody else?
Yeah.
Right? It's just if you visualize T-Mobile Center, the floor's packed, the lower bowl's full. Nobody in the upper deck. They got those black curtains up.
Oh, yeah. I saw Keith Urban last year, and they had the black curtains up. I guess that was 2 years ago now. And I was surprised because we saw him back in 2018 when we got here, and the whole place was filled. It goes to show you how fast this stuff moves.
Well, it is amazing. I've gone to Tom Petty shows where nobody's there and the rest of you can't breathe. I'm like, oh, what happened?
What happened? What's going on here? But there's no way that you had the 17,000 number, and there's definitely no way you had 10,000 on the plaza alone. We saw the protest back in 2020 after George Floyd. That may have been close to 10,000 on the plaza. This on Saturday was not close to that number. But it's all about feeding the propaganda arm of trying to basically take down Trump and make Trump less popular than he actually is based on the polling data that's out there. Bottom of the hour, we will have an update for you from our friends at the Kansas Policy Institute. But next, Iran is heating up. The Bill O'Reilly morning update is coming up. And then O'Reilly gave a nugget last night that you do not want to miss on where Trump's head is at when it comes to Iran and what the future holds for that regime on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Good update from Bill O'Reilly there on KCMO. Calling it like it is. And last night, O'Reilly was on News Nation with Leland Vittert, who just happened, I didn't know this until Guy Benson was here last week in Kansas City. Leland Vittert, who used to be on Fox as like their weekend Brett Baer guy, left for News Nation, and now he's got his own weeknight show there on News Nation. He replaced Dan Abrams. He went to college at Northwestern with Guy Benson. I think Guy said he was a freshman when Leland was a senior. But small world, so they knew each other very well. But O'Reilly's on with Leland last night, and he's talking about a text that he got from President Trump about how he's dealing with Iran. Here's what he said.
Earlier today, very briefly, I texted with President Trump. He doesn't want to use American air power at this point because that would cause some problems with China and Putin. He would rather have the Iranians surrender, which he believes they will. Now, that's what he believes, that the mullahs are through. They will have to sign a deal. The deal will be that the weapons inspectors go in to all of the places that are working on the nuke. They identify what they have. And then the Iranians themselves, under the supervision of the United Nations, would destroy a lot of their arsenal. That's what the deal would entail.
Okay.
Mullahs don't want to do that, obviously, but President Trump believes that will happen.
So that was Bill O'Reilly last night on News Nation. This is the peace through strength that obviously Ronald Reagan used effectively and President Trump during his first term also used effectively. I can't help but think that there's also an element of Trump sending a message to Putin here. And the message is this to Putin. You know, you have dragged this war on with Ukraine much longer than Trump has wanted him to, right? He's not happy at all with how Ukraine and Russia have not come to a deal yet. In part because, and Trump's always hyperbolic when he talks about this stuff, but he's like, I'd have a deal done in one day. One day I'd have that deal done between Putin and Zelensky. Obviously, we're, 150 some odd days in, and they're still at it. And Trump has, for the most part, used kid gloves when it comes to handling both sides of that war. But with this bromance between Iran and Russia and China, I've got to believe that part of what Trump and what he is using the Israelis to do here is to say, hey, guys, you keep screwing around. You blow past your deadlines, which Iran did. You don't sign the deal that I've got on the table here. You never know what's going to happen. Not that Trump wants some large-scale world war. He doesn't want that. But he sent, I think, a pretty loud message to those across the world, the worst actors on the planet, who maybe haven't taken him seriously these first few months in office. Those who think that, I don't know if Trump's got the cojones to, actually scare us, to actually make us, a little nervous. It's been a lot of talk, a lot of bluster, but he hasn't really done anything yet. And while, of course, this attack was not ours, and Marco Rubio made that very clear last week as the Secretary of State, it's also very evident that the United States is supporting Israel in these attacks. So I think that there's two things going on here. There's obviously attempts for peace in the Middle East and getting Iran to the table and getting them to sign off on deals. And as O'Reilly noted there, basically allowing the United Nations to make sure that they are not possessing major weapons of mass destruction. There's that angle. But there's also a message to other folks around the world here, which is that while Trump has taken a fairly reasonable, common sense approach these first 150 days, be careful what you wish for, okay? And I think that is a smart tactical move by this administration. And Trump also was just speaking on Air Force One a few minutes ago and said this about a deal with Iran.
Are you open to negotiating with the Iranians right now, or do you want to wait?
I don't know. I've been negotiating. I told them to do the deal. They should have done the deal. Their cities have been blown to pieces. They've lost a lot of people. They should have done the deal. I told them do the deal. So I don't know. I'm not too much in a mood to negotiate now.
I'm not too much in a mood to negotiate now. That is classic. I told them I was negotiating. I mean, he's going back to his own business dealings from his heyday in New York City is what he's doing there. I wanted to negotiate. Now, I'm not really in the mood to negotiate. Well, I don't believe that. Of course he is. Trump wants a deal today. He'd take a deal today. He'd tell Israel to take a deal today. If he could get a deal today, he's just saying that. He's bluffing. But the thing is, it's a smart bluff. And it's a bluff that hopefully is getting Iran to wake up and saying, you know what, I'm not sure we want the American muscle and the Israeli muscle at our front doorstep right now based on what Israel just did to us last week. I don't think we want that. And that is a wise calculation on behalf of the President of the United States. Yesterday got a little spicy here later in the show. I know you're listening right now. You're an early bird like the rest of us, but it was our buddy Sean Smith, a Jackson County legislator, who ended up saying something on the air he should not have said. Now,
according to the FCC, but perhaps subject-wise, he may have been right on target.
True. He was talking about Frank White and the Jackson County disaster that continues to be an ongoing saga here in this town. And he said something about leadership in Jackson County that forced us, due to FCC rules and regulations, to hit the dump button. Garner's been filling in for Mark the last few days, and that is the first dump button you have had to hit during this stint filling in, correct?
Second time.
Second time?
Second time. We had a caller. I think it was last winter. A guy used the same word, so I had to hit the dump button.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, second time's a charm. You got it in time, most importantly. Nice work. Point is, people are fed up with Jackson County. They're fed up with Frank White, the executive. They're fed up with Gail McCann-Beatty, and she's the assessment director. And now, as of this week, they've got another reason to be completely fed up with this incompetent leadership we have in the largest county in the Kansas City region. And that's because what's going on right now is the assessments are coming in for 2025. And what appears to have happened here is if you are someone who has your home listed as an Airbnb rental, maybe you don't rent it all the time. Maybe you just rent a room. I don't know. People do weird things on these sites. You are getting hit as a commercial property, and you are getting massive spikes in your assessments. And that is what had Sean Smith just totally bent out of shape yesterday on the show and had him saying things that required us to dump him by FCC rules and regulations. Now, it is up on the podcast if you want to hear it. You can hear it there for yourself because whatever goes on the podcast side of things. But over the air, we could not play what he said. That being said, here he was yesterday. This was part of a Fox 4 package on the latest assessment drama coming out of Jackson County, Missouri.
Owners of short-term rentals like this Airbnb in Waldo are seeing their Jackson County property taxes leap to troubling levels due to a reclassification, changing short-term rentals from residential to commercial.
We were never given notice. We only got this piece of paper here.
Laura Williams shared her Jackson County tax assessment on this small house with Fox 4 News on Monday. Her annual taxes more than tripled to $6,872 per year. That's on top of the short-term rental taxes and registration she already pays to Kansas City.
Who is going to want to rent out their house for the World Cup when it's going to cause their property taxes to triple? I think it's something that people in Kansas City should be concerned about.
A spokesperson for Jackson County tells Fox 4 News this is the result of a change in state law that defines properties that are available for rental periods of less than 30 days as transient housing, which means they don't qualify as residential. Jackson County tax assessor Gail McCann-Beatty addressed the change with county leaders in late May, but no one would answer specific questions from Fox 4 News about the change locally.
What a shocker that is right there. You mean these people wouldn't answer questions locally? Wow, because they never do that. This has been a leadership led by Frank White, but including the county assessor who is appointed, not elected, Gail McCann-Beatty. They have been as shady as it gets when it comes to being transparent when in Jackson County.
What she's done, I believe, is unconstitutional.
Jackson County legislator Sean Smith doesn't believe the assessor's office informed the public about the reclassification. Smith wants to know if this affects all short-term rental operators, including those who register their properties as an option of renting them.
The implementation and execution have just been very poor. It should have been talked about in the public so that if somebody is maybe on the registry, but they have no intention of using it, they could have made an informed decision.
See, that's what I'm most interested in, what Sean Smith just said right there. How many people have their home or a room listed on Airbnb just in case the right scenario pops up, but they don't really use it? It's not actually a business model for them. I know there are people out there like that. I don't get it. Just me personally, I don't get it. I mean, if you want to be renting out your home in this world to the amount of weirdos out there, I suppose that's on you, but I promise you it's not going to be worth the extra $100. I mean, there's a bunch of ways you can make an extra $100 right now, and it doesn't involve having weirdos in your house. So listen, that's just my little sidebar for the day, though, John Anthony.
Well, I think a few people have a second property. At least sometimes you inherit the parents' place, and maybe what are you going to do? This might be an option. So a few people are in that boat.
That's fair. And I know that a lot of that does go on. You get a piece of property. What do I do with it? I'll make some money off it for the time being. Maybe I'll sell it down the road. I get that world does exist. But that being said, it's like, what do you do if you're a casual renter And then you open up your property tax bill, like this lady in Waldo, and it's over 3x what it was when the last assessment came out 2 years ago in Jackson County. It's unsustainable. It's supposed to raise, according to reports I saw last night on local news, $144 million for the county. And that is obscene. But it's part of this broader problem that we have here. And it's not unique to Kansas City. I think it's true for cities and counties all over the country. They have gotten so fat. I don't mean literally, although trust me, there's a lot of people I see in city government that could lose a pound or two. I mean, the budgets have gotten so fat in the wake of COVID, they are desperately trying to figure out ways to keep up. Where can they get their next buck? How can they keep growing government? What does it look like? How do they entice business to stay there or business to come there with these insane incentive deals that they offer up to some of these places? What do? They can only squeeze so much more out of the everyday taxpayer, but they're trying to do that as well. They're completely shameless in this entire process. And, you know, we get these local news stories whenever these assessments come out, either side of state line, Missouri side, Kansas side, get it all the time. But in the end, people continue to elect the same fools. They keep putting the same fools in office. And then when taxes roll around, they're like, whoa, these guys are screwing us. Yeah, you don't say.
Talk about a bombshell.
I mean, it happened last time, too. When are you going to wake up, smell the roses, learn a lesson, and stop being duped by these people? What is it going to take? I mean, I'm genuinely asking. What is it going to take? 913-408-7957. That's the text line. And we just got this from 1081. Pete, got to pay for the stadium somehow. That's right. That's an excellent point. You know, how about that? Days after the two professional sports franchises decide that they're going to get up to $1.5 billion in basically kickbacks on revenues from the stadium to pay off their own bonds. You got Airbnb folks having their property taxes triple from $2,000 to $6,000. That is a hell of a look. 913-408-7957. Coming up, a local politician was reportedly on the hit list of the crazed man in Minneapolis. We'll tell you who and why next. So somehow Missouri Congressman Emanuel Cleaver ended up on the list from Vance Belter, the man who is alleged to have shot multiple Minnesota lawmakers over the weekend when he was disguised as a police officer at their front door in just an absolutely chilling and disgusting story that continues to unfold. So Emanuel Cleaver shared this yesterday with local media, and Channel 41 KSHB had it first.
Cleaver told me he's not frightened his name was on the list. He is disappointed, though, with the political environment right now. Here's how the conversation went between law enforcement and Cleaver's office.
When this tragedy occurred in Minneapolis, the sergeant at arms did call my chief of staff and probably others and said, look, your name is on the list, so be careful. If you need to get some information, if you want them to call the police chief in Kansas City, we'll do that.
The Associated Press is reporting about 70 names were on a list found at that crime scene in Minnesota. The names included elected leaders, community leaders, and even abortion rights advocates. Cleaver said the sergeant at arms in D.C. offered his office more security.
Okay, so Emanuel Cleaver was reportedly on that list. There were upwards of 70 politicians on the list from this guy, Vance Belter, who was caught Sunday night and had his first court appearance yesterday afternoon. He was unshackled, sitting next to a defense attorney in court. He is going to remain in custody until his next hearing, scheduled for June 27th. So we don't really know how Emanuel Cleaver ends up on this list, but Cleaver claims, of course, that he was on this list. And that's beyond disturbing, obviously. how this individual gathers this list and how Cleaver gets on it is something I would be interested in learning.
Okay, me too. I wondered if that was wrong, but I'm like, who else is on here? Because that might shape the motive.
Exactly. I mean, I totally agree with that. Like, who else outside of folks in Minnesota are on that list? We don't know. That list has not been released. But we know I've seen reports of 45 politicians on the list. I've seen upwards of 70 politicians on that reported list from this guy, Van Spelter. But either way, figuring out who is on that list will help provide some type of motive as to why this guy did what he did. But it is becoming more and more evident that this person did identify as somebody who was against the left, as somebody who was, I don't know if you want to call him a conservative or a Republican, whatever you want to call him. It's becoming more and more evident as information comes out that this guy was not a leftist. So now it's very simple. What do? It's not difficult. We unequivocally denounce this monster, make it clear that political violence has no place in the conservative movement. And that, I mean, it's really that simple. There's no yeah, but. There's no, well, let's say. I mean, it's really that easy. Some people may celebrate attempts on Trump's life. We're not stupid at that level. Come on now. We're not going down that road. There's no whataboutism here. Political violence is wrong. Political violence is gross. This, in and of itself, this story is just beyond disturbing, with this guy showing up at politicians' homes at night dressed like a cop and then killing them. And he went to the homes of other politicians as well with the intent to obviously try to hurt them. And thankfully, it did not happen. And then, of course, he gets found in a rural wooded area late Sunday night. And now, of course, he's been arrested, thank goodness. But there's no well, look at what they do when Trump almost gets shot and killed, or Trump does get shot and nearly gets killed. I really don't care. I don't. This is not difficult to take the moral high ground on, okay? The only thing to do here is denounce this monster and make it clear that political violence has no place in our movement and shouldn't have any place in any movement. That's it. And Emmanuel Cleaver, obviously, is someone we've had a lot of fun with the last few months because he's given us our favorite drop of 2025.
You mustard moo.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, this obviously transcends all politics, and it should transcend all politics. And thankfully, nothing happened to Missouri Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver. Now, meantime, Mark Alford last night had himself what was a tightly secure town hall last night in Belton. And Mark is going to be on the show this morning in just over 1 hour from now at 7:50. We'll talk to the Missouri congressman from the 4th Congressional District. And he was down there in Belton doing a town hall with KCUR, of all people and all places. That is, of course, your woke national panhandler radio affiliate here in Kansas City. And we'll talk to Mark coming up next hour about how it went. Apparently, he was getting heckled. He was getting cursed at. So we had a lot of children in the room last night, John.
Yeah, KCR, he didn't bring enough tote bags and coffee mugs for everybody. I'm sure he was just talking to their listeners.
Well, that's the thing,
They
man.
probably drove in from Prairie Village, packed a lunch, some brie and wine.
They're in Belton. The notion that Belton is a stronghold of KCUR listenership is comical to me. It's not. It's like KCUR is, I know they've got to go into Mark's district, right? But Mark's district is not littered with KCUR listeners. It's just not. Like Sharice David's district, sure. Emmanuel Cleaver's district, absolutely. Mark Alford's district is not filled with KCUR diehards who are looking for their keychains and tote bags during the annual drives. That's not who Mark Alford constituents are. I mean, there's a smattering, but this is not Johnson County. This is not Kansas City, Missouri. This is Mark Alford's ruby red 4th Congressional District. So KCUR goes down there. They know they have to be in his district to pull off this town hall and do it right. And they had Steve Kraske out there, of course, moderating this thing with Mark Alford. And according to the people I talked to who were there, some who were staffers for Alford, they said that Kraske was fair, which, fine, I'll give him credit. I respect that. If he's being fair, that's great. But I've got to know, and I'm going to ask Mark about this next hour, whether or not the idea of defunding NPR actually came up. I got to imagine it did, and I hope that Mark didn't hold back and told these people to fund your own damn radio station, just like we do here at KCMO with great advertisers and then great listeners who support our outstanding advertisers. I hope he told them to fund their own damn radio station, just like some of you want to tell the billionaire sports owners to build their own damn stadium. Fund your own radio stations, build your own stadiums. This is not difficult. This is America. You do what you want. But you stop relying on the government and the taxpayer to do what you want them to do. This ain't difficult. And I would love it if that was part of Mark Alford's message last night, but we'll have to wait until next hour to get a feel on how exactly things went for him in Belton. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. We'll get to the 6 at 6, the top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. Coming up next on 95.7 FM, and we are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.